Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are moving now to session 6, Energy Efficiency First, Global Dimension and Regional Prospects. I have the pleasure to have with me Anthi Haralambous from Cyprus, Roman Matkowski from Black Sea Trade and Development Bank, and Stelios Psomas from Greece. Okay. Now, because I believe that the issue is quite important, it's going to be a short presentation from the outlook regarding energy efficiency and a little bit about renewables in Southeast Europe. So permit me to go over there for the presentation. It is part of the presentation that we have presenting around the area with Kostis Stambolis when we are promoting the outlook. Okay, energy efficiency. The important it is that all states in the region have transposed the EU legislation on energy efficiency, and mainly the Energy Efficiency Directive. And now they're working on the Green Deal. So what we did in the outlook on that area, we analyzed it, the National Energy Efficiency Action Plan that is mandatory for EU member states and also for the countries in the region. And from there, we got these results. For example, all the countries complying with EED, they set targets for 2030. There are some countries in the region, like Albania, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Kosovo, Montenegro, and North Macedonia, that they are expected to fulfill the requirements for National Energy and Climate Plan by late 2021 or early 2022. Important part of that is the incentives. As you can see, there is a variety of incentives regarding energy efficiency. A lot of the countries that, all the countries members of the European Union, they are working with the operational program, like ESPA that we have in Greece. I would like to ask you to put attention on Israel. Israel is working on energy efficiency projects via tender. The best is getting the money. It's not like here, so everybody's getting. Now, also, the important role of international financial institutions like World Bank, EIB, EBRD, that they are investing quite a lot of money in Turkey, and especially in public buildings. Now, to conclude about energy efficiency, I would like to say that it is an ongoing plethora of national efforts and programs, but as Eurostat announced in early 2020, the EU energy consumption is rising despite the efforts to reduce it across Europe. So, the same thing happening with CO2, that in spite of all the efforts, CO2 emissions, they are going up year by year. So that one, notice it. A few words about renewables. Amazing, but is playing a crucial role, the large hydro. As you can see in over here, renewable energy installed capacity with hydro. This is large hydro. You can see Albania, for example, is 98%. Without hydro, 0. So, and of course, for example, in Greece, is 50%, and then it's becoming 35. Turkey 50 is becoming 18. So that it is something to say that is the important role of large hydro in the region, and hydro in the region. So, few things about renewables in West Balkans. We have 6 countries lag significantly behind the rest of Europe in the modernization of their energy sector, have not reached their 2020 renewable energy targets, but quite a lot of work and prospects existing for the next year. Turkey and Israel, I'll have it separately in order to see important things. For example, Turkey has tripled its installed renewable capacity, ranks 6th in Europe and 13th in the world in terms of renewable capacity, and is leading the area in geothermal energy. Israel. Renewable energy in Israel accounted for a minor share of electricity production. There is a total of over 1.6 million solar water heaters installed. The amazing here, I'm sorry, is that before it was mandatory to install solar thermal heaters for hot water. Now it's not a law because almost all houses and all buildings, they have it. So they don't need the law. Of course, 70% of Israel is coming from natural gas, 10% from renewables, almost all PV. And one slide I dedicated to heating and cooling, because it's not only renewables for electricity, but it's also renewables for heating and cooling. And that's something that we'll discuss it with the panel, because the two of the distinguished guests that we have, they are working in the area of renewables. The most important change for the region is a sharply falling share of coal and lignite-based generation. That's something that we have it. But RES has increased their regional share in power generation to 34% in 2019. A parenthesis here, this study completed in 2021, so we didn't include anything happen afterwards. So you understand that it's a little bit so. The main source of renewables for heating and cooling in the region derives from biomass, solid geothermal and solar thermal applications. The importance of geothermal energy is something that we have to address it. It's quite important, either as low enthalpy or high enthalpy for electricity production. There is a potential in the region, but is still tapped. Conclusion. It's difficult to reach the climate neutrality target by 2050. It needs quite a lot of work and quite a lot of investment. And that investment and the role of the banks, we're going to discuss it also with the panel in a while. So, I'm going to stay with that. That's a very fast overview of what is happening in the region. The region is, the states in the region, they are working, but a lot of things are missing. A lot of things are needed. So things that we're going to discuss. So I'm going to call to Anthi to come. Anthi Haralambous, that now is the chairman of International Solar Energy Organization of Cyprus, for her presentation.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and those attending from remotely, like myself yesterday. So first of all, I would like to thank ENF for organizing this event and for the invitation. Mr. Stambolis and Costa, thank you very much. Yesterday we had the opportunity to listen to very interesting presentations regarding the gas and electricity markets. And this morning, we had the opportunity to listen about storage. There is no need to repeat the importance of further promoting the renewable energy, the energy efficiency, because it's vital in the European Green Deal and Fit for 55 legislative package. The promotion of renewable electricity needs, however, a transparent, well-functioning electricity market. The complexity of energy liberalization process is one of the reasons why the European Union's mandate has not been uniformly implemented by all member states. Thus, in some member states, there is a failure of fulfillment of the obligations regarding the liberalization of electricity market. For instance, in Cyprus, private investors point out that the small size of the domestic market, the undisputed dominance of the vertical integrated company, the lack of autonomous large consumers are factors to make the investments in electricity from renewables particularly risky. This finding is also confirmed by the financial institutions in Cyprus that will be called upon to finance these projects. The experience from the international environment is not at all encouraging, since many financial institutions abroad have suffered significantly from losses from investments in the electricity market, and especially from renewable energy. Therefore, what is needed? For Cyprus, if we focus on Cyprus, there is a progress to liberalize the market. However, the import of natural gas into energy mix of Cyprus face significant delays. The process of replacing fossil fuels with renewable energy sources and other zero carbon solutions in the heating and cooling sector in the EU has so far been slower than in electricity generation, as renewables currently provide only 23% of that consumption. In 2020, renewable energy accounted 23% of the total energy used in heating and cooling in the EU, steadily increasing from 12 of 2004 to 22 in 2019. Renewable energy in heating and cooling is supported by a variety of legislation and tools in the Fit for 55 legislative package. The idea of a common European framework for a RES support scheme with additional requirements for such schemes on European level is important and should be further promoted. The idea of establishing strong RES prosumers should be further promoted to enforce the uptake of renewables and the adoption of energy efficiency measures. To meet the new 2030 climate target, energy efficiency needs to be prioritized. To set up its effort, the European Commission put forward in July 2021 the new proposal on how to deliver the European Green Deal. The revised directive requires EU countries to collectively ensure an additional reduction of energy consumption of 9% by 2030 compared to 2020 reference scenario. Now, besides the REPowerEU, the EU Green Deal, the Fit for 55, and the rest policy packages, It's important to say that for the SDG 7 on affordable and clean energy, Cyprus ranks almost last in EU 27 when it comes to energy import dependency, but also ranks 25th in relation to the population that can keep homes adequately warm. In terms of mobility, Cyprus has a long way to go. Transport emissions in particular are steadily growing and constitute 21% of the total Cyprus greenhouse gas emissions. Cyprus faces significant challenges to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions in line with its EU obligations. So the way forward, what could be to further promote the energy communities, to provide more power to prosumers, to promote smart grids and storage, to reshape the skills of businesses with emphasis on green skills, and also we need to overcome some barriers related with the grid connection. However, the strong promotion of solar RES technologies implicate with the raw materials availability and waste. Some of the raw materials used in solar photovoltaic installations include minerals that are of strategic importance to the EU economy, and their supply is already at increased risk. At present, the EU does not have rare earth mining, and the world's major producers and suppliers of critical and some non-critical raw materials are largely concentrated in few countries. This could pose both risks to security of supply and environmental and social problems. More specifically, China controls the world market as the main producers and user of the majority of critical raw materials. The EU dependence on China is certainly a risk factor and must be taken seriously into account when planning the future of renewable energy in Europe and achieving the long-term targets of climate neutrality. By 2050, it is estimated that 60 million tons will be produced of PV waste. Therefore, it's important to include renewable energy in the circular economy principles. In conclusion, I would like to say that we have to give more power to small producers, and we need to further promote energy efficiency. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anthi, for your thorough presentation. Always it is precise and full of data that you need actually to go back and read it again and again to understand, because you have quite a lot of data and important data in your presentation. Now I have the pleasure to ask Mr. Psomas. He's a senior advisor. He's the guru of photovoltaics in Greece. So, Stelios, you have the floor.
Actually, I'll be quite brief. You know, there are times in where things are moving, let's say, business as usual. To put it in another way, renewables are walking their way to the future. However, while until now the driving forces for the development, the deployment of renewables were policy and cost, there are today, these days, I think that the big driving force is history itself, and that is why I'm going to focus on new EU policies, which, in contrast to the past, they are not just new policies that are a bit better than last time. The war in Ukraine has actually speeded up things, and for the first time, we have a package of EU measures, the so-called REPowerEU package, which is not just another package. It's going to change the shape of renewables in Europe in this decade, and especially for solar power. For the first time, we have an EU solar strategy, and for the first time, we have the European Commission calling solar energy the kingpin of the effort it takes. It's a recognition of what PV has achieved during the last few years. And the reason for that is that, as I said before, the huge reduction in cost, although today we face a short period, I guess, where for the first time we have increase in solar prices compared to the past. However, there is a recognition that the citizens of Europe, the so-called prosumers, can contribute to the achievement of the EU targets. According to the estimates, only rooftop PV could provide almost 25% of EU's electricity consumption. That is more than gas is actually contributing today. Of course, if you want to have a healthy market, you need the whole spectrum of applications, from the very small residential ones to the huge utility scale ones. This is how we see the markets to develop. Nevertheless, today I will focus on these small markets, the rooftop PV, the prosumers, just because everybody's realizing now, and by everybody I mean everybody, that small PV systems can actually shield consumers from high energy prices. In this same REPowerEU plan, there is emphasis given on what we call the electrification of everything, and that is why we see PV to develop in figures that were unimaginable before. In the previous session, we discussed about how large the capacity of renewables can be. The answer is actually the sky is the limit, because in the coming years we'll have to electrify transport, we have to electrify industry more, and of course we have to electrify our homes more. And that is why the European new policies give emphasis on energy storage as well as heat pumps. And I would say that especially in our areas, we need to take account of the recent technological developments in hybrid systems like PV thermal systems that can provide electricity and hot water and heat at the same time with the same technology at a very competitive cost. There have been some advancements recently which needs to be taken into account. As I said before, and contrary to what's happening in Israel, Costa, the European strategy, solar strategy, demands the compulsory use of rooftop solar energy. Actually, the emphasis is given on PV, but also this is valid for solar thermal systems. According to the new European strategy, all new public and commercial buildings with useful area of more than 250 square meters should be equipped with solar systems by 2026. All existing public and commercial buildings should do the same a year after, and all new residential buildings should have PV installed latest by 2029. Actually, the new national climate law, which was voted a few days ago in Greece, makes compulsory the installation of PV in all new commercial buildings with a certain area of 500 square meters by next year already. This is going to be a game changer. As you realize, it opens new markets for PV, and also it involves citizens for the first time in a way that was never seen before. Apart from that, the new regulations, the new European regulations demand that all new buildings are solar ready. So from now on, we have to design our buildings differently, not just make them more energy efficient, but also make them use solar energy in a way that was never used before. As I said before, the same strategy also supports storage and heat pumps. I just want to give a practical example here of what does installing a storage system in combination with a PV system in a commercial building would mean in practice. We see that storage can actually almost double the self-consumption rate in a building, in a commercial building. And when you translate it into money, into costs, even with the high prices that we face today, and we expect that these prices are going to keep up also next year, but then as of 2024 they will start going down again. We see on the right slide the levelized cost of electricity by a PV system, a commercial PV system of a few hundred kilowatts. We see that it's even with the high prices of today, it's much, much cheaper than any other source of electricity. Even if you combine it with a storage system, still you get a very low levelized cost, and even standalone batteries can be competitive with the very high prices of fossil fuels we face today. So everything seems to be on our side, let's say. The EU policies, the national policies, the targets, the new National Energy and Climate Plan of Greece is expected to have a target around 80% of renewables by 2030. And even cost is on our side. So we have people on our side as well. The majority of people support this way to move forward. So the real enemy, I would say, it's ourselves. It's up to us to prove that we can deliver these very ambitious targets on time. For example, and also to deal with the competition within our markets. If you ask me what is the biggest problem of batteries this day, I would say the biggest competitor is batteries, because we have two different areas of development. The one is, of course, electric vehicles. The other is the stationary applications that we're talking about. And the biggest competitor for stationary applications is electric vehicles. They take all production, all supply of the market currently. The demand is much higher than that. So we have to fight each other who will get the batteries first. Anyway, this is a good problem to deal with, to be honest. A few years ago, nobody would talk about these problems. Now we have to prove that we are capable of coping with these high standards. I think we can make it, and for the first time, just to make it a bit more exciting, we are able to supply power to the people. That was what we wanted a few years ago. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thomas. Now, Stelio, you gave us quite a lot of thoughts, especially I'm going to stay with the last one that you said about the PV in buildings, so they become prosumers. Lately, the Greek state announced that buildings more than 500 square meters are obliged to have PV. But they didn't mention, and correct me if I'm wrong, that also they should have solar thermal systems.
Yes, actually, if you look at the international websites today, there is an interview by the solar thermal president, our friend Kostas Ravasaros. Yes,
Ravasaros.
He's complaining about that. He said, what the hell, we have an EU solar strategy, and it talks about PV and solar thermal, but you tend to forget solar thermal. No, we don't forget solar thermal. We need all technologies on board on that. The truth is that PV is very popular among people, and they are popular because it's very clear that they save money. You know, with electricity, you get a bill every month,
Yeah.
and you can see the difference. With solar thermal, it's different. You don't see the bill, it's indirect. So you don't feel the efficiency, you don't feel the savings.
I'm not, okay, I understand it, but I'm not so much in favor of that. And I tell you what, more than 20%, Maniatis came out, Professor Maniatis came out and say 20% less electricity if you are using a solar thermal system. What's happening in Cyprus?
Not only in Cyprus.
Not only in Cyprus, but
With the implementation of the Energy Efficiency Directive, where all the buildings have to have energy performance certificate. Before we had legislation regulation that it was obligatory all the new buildings to have a solar thermal system. Now this is included in the percentage of renewables to be covered under the EPC, and therefore is more promoted. Are more promoted the installation of photovoltaics instead of the solar thermal. And the architects prefer the solar PV because they can be more integrated into residential building, let's say. And also, I think, especially in Cyprus, I know the concerns of Mr. Travasaros, especially in Cyprus, we couldn't promote. However, almost all residential houses have a solar thermal. Not the same is happening in the services sector.
in the service sector. And now is the crucial time to talk about money. And as we're talking about money, and you know very well that energy efficiency, it's high cost. You need to have a high budget to do it. It's not a cheap one. So you need a strong banking system. So we have with us, and it's a great pleasure to have with us, Mr. Roman Matkiewski. So the Polish is always my weak language. Director, Energy and Infrastructure of the Black Sea Trade and Development Bank. Roman.
Pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you for the kind invitation and to the organizers to be here.
You are coming from the banking system.
Correct.
Tell us a little bit the experience that you have in the bank regarding energy efficiency and small renewable projects, usually for buildings, for houses, so on, in order to see what is the feeling of the bank.
Well, I can talk about the bank and I can talk about banking in general. I think our bank, we have not done that much in terms of energy efficiency, but I must say overall the banking system has done very little in terms of supporting energy efficiency. It's driven by bankability, first and foremost, because we are not concessionary lenders, nor many of the lenders are. There are grants available for concessional projects, but everything has to be bankable. You're seeing more development in, let's say, LED buses or rooftop slowly coming on board. But at the end of the day, for example, rooftop, we were looking at something in Turkey where you have a large plant, they have massive plant, and they're talking about putting rooftop on top. Okay, so you're now talking about a project could be viable, it could be bankable, but the question is, where is the risk? Normally, in previous projects you had feed-in tariff or corporate PPAs, and then who are you getting your revenue from? You're getting your revenue from the supplier, the energy consumer, which is the plant underneath these roofs.
Yeah.
So now, instead of having a different type of risk, you're taking that corporate risk of the underlying plant, which is totally different sector from energy. And you have to start analyzing that. So it's possible. It becomes a different type of risk categories that you're looking at. And it's in these early type of projects, you're starting to see some development. Be it, there's been a lot of development in LED buses, zero emission type buses, but also in terms of rooftop. Some of the other technologies, less so, I would say.
Yeah, you know, especially today, I'm currently working in a project in Serbia, United Nations, and we are doing analysis of energy efficiency in buildings, public buildings. And the directive from the UNDP is that when you do the risk analysis, 100% increase of the today's energy price and 100% increase of the cost. I mean, what risk analysis is this? So actually, it is a very good period for implementing energy efficiency project. On the other hand, it's very difficult to implement it because we don't have very stable construction prices for construction material, and we don't have energy prices. They're volatile. They're like that.
I mean,
So
bankers
how
don't-
do you tackle this problem?
Bankers don't like the volatility. I mean,
I know
I
that,
think
that's why.
traders do, and I think hedge funds do, but bankers loves the stability.
Yeah.
I think we all can agree that energy prices are definitely increasing. How much and at what level will it stabilize? That's the question. Is this short, medium term, or is this longer term in terms of energy prices increasing? We can definitely say it's increased, but at what level?
Yeah.
Costs are going phenomenally, and right now we're in a hugely inflationary period. And is it short, medium term? Is it going to be longer? And I think the view is more, it's cyclicality of it is much longer. And we've all seen that in the last couple of days in terms of interest rates increasing in the US, in Europe, all over. And you know, not by just a couple percent, you know, a couple basis points, we're talking significant increases. So therefore, everyone's starting to factor in inflation in a big scale. So therefore, the input prices are also increasing, as you say. So it becomes challenging.
Do you believe that there is a role by ESCOs to play on that?
Possibly. You know, these are a microcosm, like a smaller market. It's possible. I think ESCOs have been challenging to finance and finding it sustainably financeable. Those that I remember from 10, 20 years, you know, have not many of them have survived, so to speak, or, you know, really developed so far. But it is possible. But, you know, smaller micro networks and things like that is important.
If I may.
Please.
Energy efficiency was always a difficult issue, especially for development banks, because of size, among other things. Normally, energy efficiency projects are small, so they're not interested. You have to have clusters of projects to make it more interesting. However, I think that we, as I said, we are moving to a leapfrogging nowadays, not just walking. And I guess that the banking sector as a whole should also leapfrog, you know, in its own area. The banking sector is not just facing problems with energy efficiency. They're also facing problems, in the good sense, with renewables. They are not based on feed-in tariffs anymore. They have to deal with wholesale markets. They have to deal with PPAs. So they have to deal with more risky projects. They have to live with more risk. So they have to develop their own strategies and products to take account of this increased risk. This is the world we'll be living in the next years.
So you believe the slogan by IEA that the new world is coming up, the old one is not existing anymore?
Well, I usually use something that Bloomberg New Energy Finance said a few years ago. They say you may not see it now, but actually renewables have won the war back in 2013. It was the first year that renewables, renewable capacity was the highest ever. And it kept on going this way, and the gap between renewables and the rest of let's say the old world technologies is increasing.
Yes, there is still a long way to go, and we have to face a lot of changes, and we have to adapt to these changes. But to be honest, I mean, it's just a matter of inertia from now on. The real changes have already begun.
Okay.
Can I add
Yes,
something
please,
on the
yeah,
ESCO
Yeah.
topic? You said if ESCOs could be a solution on the energy efficiency topic, but I think they face the same risk on volatile
Exactly.
energy prices, and the projections for long term they face this risk. So it's a parallel market, but without success for the time being.
So probably that was the reason that they started with the public buildings for energy efficiency renovation. So the state is behind anyway, any state bank or whatever, like παρακαταθηκών και δανείων that we have in Greece, how you say it, deposit. And,
They've changed their name
They
recently,
changed,
and it's a bit complicated.
So that bank, which is the state behind, so that's why now with the Electra program that they want to inaugurate, they are going for public buildings, hospitals, and so on, in order to reach the target set by EED. I'm not very optimistic personally. As Kostas, I'm not very optimistic because before I knew how to work. I knew that this is the energy price, we have an increase. Now we don't know. Just something happened in Asia, gas is going up.
On the other hand, Kostas, I'm quite optimistic, and I will explain why. Yes, there is volatility, and actually we haven't seen such a volatility
Many years.
many decades, not just
Decades,
years.
correct.
On the other hand, I think that everybody agrees that when the things culminate and prices, culminate, they will never go to the low levels we've seen before. We know that they will be a bit higher. How big?
We don't know.
We don't know, but we don't really care, and I will explain why. Especially in the case of PV, and that I think is the reason why PV is so popular, is that no matter what happens, no matter what happens in China with lockdowns and the problems we face with
The war.
transporting the material to Europe or the US, still the cost is so low compared to the wholesale prices that you can calculate your risks.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true.
there is a lot of meat there for everybody to win. It's a win-win situation. That's why I wouldn't worry. And the market has its tools how to predict future prices, even with the volatility. I guess that if banks could just see how calculated the risk can be, I don't think there is a real reason for worries, and then they could be more easy to finance energy efficiency and renewable projects.
But
not with the ESCO thing, we've never seen banks very keen to finance ESCOs.
Correct.
But
Correct.
On the other hand,
in Greece we haven't seen it.
Yeah.
In the region.
ESCOs are based on these technologies. So they actually take the risk every private investor takes, if you think about it. So I don't see why they shouldn't finance ESCOs under the certain circumstances. So that's why I'm optimistic. Of course, I was always optimistic.
You have a point, Roman.
But on the other hand,
I will agree. I'm optimistic, and I think the directive in moving towards solar panels on buildings and legislating that is very possible. And similarly, as we're talking about corporate PPAs, this will be resolved. But the point is, we have to find the equilibrium. Right now, we've gone from fixed feed-in tariffs or certainty to total uncertainty and evaluating that. So the models haven't come to an equilibrium, or the banks haven't said, this works. Banks are trying it. We are trying it. All the banks are trying to do corporate PPAs and are doing it. But there's not one standard. Similarly with with energy efficiency, it will happen because there's more demand for it, there's more interest in it, and even with the regulation, there's more encouragement into it. It will happen, but it'll just, the question is
Just a
time.
matter of
Time.
couple of years, that's
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
Okay. Right. Any questions from the, please, sir.
I worked in this field of energy
Okay.
efficiency. My impression was, or still, the weak link is the building sector.
Correct.
You know, when I talked in the past, with the bankers, they are afraid of building sector. When they have projects from like a large public building or industrial facility with one due diligence, they can manage it. And these thousands of buildings create a horrible situation for them, for the bankers. They need NGOs or some kind of facilitators like ESCOs to take the risk to follow up these projects. And we have to think for some tools how we can promote energy efficiency in the building sector.
ESCO is working in Turkey.
Yes, but less effective.
Less effective.
Yes,
Okay.
since 20 years it's
Yeah.
promoted, but it's
Yeah,
not
we have it in
effective.
Greece, but it's less effective. Okay, I would like to thank all the participants in this session. I would like to thank all of you that you are here, and we're going to have a break now for coffee. Thank you very much. And good luck to energy efficiency.